Do I sound okay? I haven't used this mic in a while.
Sound very handsome.
Hey, I like it.
All right, dude. Well, that's all the important stuff. You ready to do this?
Let's fucking do it, Jer.
All right. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome to the show. I'm super stoked you're here. And if you haven't done it already, consider liking or subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are regular here, you feel like you're getting some out of the show, then for the love of God, tell your friends. That would help me out a whole bunch. And if you think the show's worth sharing, share it. All right. I got another guest today. I am super stoked to have my good buddy Kasey on the show. Kasey and I worked together a very long time ago, and he's back. And we're going to talk about some pertinent things today about how to handle layoffs. Kasey's an adventurer. He's a storyteller. He's a design entrepreneur. And after a short nomadic sprint, Kasey has now found himself down in Austin, Texas. And as a relentless community builder, he founded one of the newest and fastest growing tech and design meetups in Austin, the Austin Tech and Experience Group. ATX boasts a safe and inclusive space for all passionate and creative professionals in tech, UX, art, and so on. So if you're down in Austin, why don't you give old Kasey a holler? You can join his group. I'm sure he'd love to have you. Kasey, what's up, man? Welcome to Beyond UX Design. It's great to have you here, dude.
Thanks for having me, Jer. Oh, man, it's great to be back with you, talking with you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, dude, of course. You and I got to talking a few weeks back, and you told me about getting laid off. And I thought, if anybody I know has some advice on how to handle a layoff, it's Kasey. So I wanted to bring you on today and talk a little bit about this. As everybody out there listening, I'm sure at this point is aware, layoffs abound right now in the tech industry. And, this is something I think everybody needs to at some point think about, because if it hasn't happened to you yet, I can almost promise you at some point in your career, you will get laid off due to no fault of your own. A lot of people think it's like a stigma. It's me. I did something wrong, but I don't think that's the case.
It's a crazy environment that we find ourselves in, man. I feel like the state of the market, big tech right now going through just massive layoffs. It's a wild time. It's a wild world. And like I said, it's not a situation you really want to find yourself in, but like, I'm like excited to talk to you about the opportunities that can come out of, these types of situations. And like, if you look at it from, it's a blessing in disguise almost.
Well, let's think about this then. You get the, I guess at this point, you don't even get called into anybody's office. It's usually like, I've seen emails, some people finding out they're getting laid off via like, the news and stuff at some of these big companies. When you get the news, like, how do you handle it? What do you do?
It's hard to not get emotional about it, right? Because it's especially in my situation previously, I got personally invested in the company and in the product. It's hard to not get emotional about it. But at the same time, there were things that I did after being laid, immediately after, and we'll jump in that in a second, to help kind of like work as not a safety net, but like basically a buffer of like how to get on top of it, right? To get ahead of it. So this is where like my big thing is about building a community and having a strong network, and have just really great relationships that you can lean on in times like these when this happens. Because again, like Jared said, like it's going to happen to you probably at least once. Hopefully not more than that, but
fingers crossed.
Well, your fingers crossed. There's always a chance because we are replaceable. Remember, and I think at the end of the day, creative and design is like usually the first thing to be cut from, unfortunately, from budgets. Even though that we have like a serious like impact on ROI and like impact on the business, and it's proven, but it's fine. Where community came into play was, I'll just tell you a little bit of a story. I think when I was like right before I was actually let go, I had an opportunity to do some contract work on the side, which was pretty high paying, some really interesting projects, all in software. It was like a mobile app and like a desktop platform to work on, two different things, two different clients. But a buddy of mine that I had met in Puerto Rico in a swim up bar near the beach during a UX conference.
Oh, yeah. Not a bad way to meet somebody.
Oh yeah, my buddy reached out to me. He's like, "Hey man, I think you'd be really great to help out with these projects if you're interested." And at the same time, I was trying to buy a house, and I was also working full time. More than 40 hours a week on my full time job because again, I was personally invested in it.
Yeah.
And I really want to do great work. I want to make this product amazing. So I was kind of on the fence of like whether I was going to say yes or no to these contract gigs. And I ended up saying yes because they were very, it was like 5 to 10 hours a week, right? It wasn't that demanding, right? It was very, very low demand. So I was like, I can do that. Make some extra beer money, help with the house, et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And again, one thing leads to another. I met this guy randomly in Puerto Rico at a UX conference. We're friends to this day, many years later. And he reaches out to me kind of randomly. He's like, "Hey, help me out with these projects." I say yes, and then start working on these projects. And then I get let go. Again, it was just like out of the blue, unexpected, not a situation you want to find yourself in. And then luckily I had my friend to lean on with these contracts. And I asked him, I said, "Hey man, I just got let go. Is there any more work with these contracts? Is there any way to ramp up the time? What else is coming down the pipeline? What else can I help with? Like just I've got this lead. Let me go with it. Let me run with it." And he called me immediately and was like, "Hey man, I'm here to help." We ramped up the hours. He ended up actually bringing me on board to his company now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And
is that where you're at? Where you ended up getting the full time? This is the same place.
Same place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's different than it's his full time job, right? So it's his full time company called Seismic, and I was just like really grateful that he vouched for me. He recommended me, and I started as a contractor at Seismic. Maybe like a month or two later, I think I had taken some time taken some personal time. Wanted to work these contracts because I had like a month or two of hours to burn through, right, to use. And I really wanted to explore these projects, these side projects, and like ramp down and also get the house set up, right? Like get my new house set up. So like going back to a blessing in disguise, it opened up this avenue, this opportunity for me to like get my house situated and within like 3 weeks, which was like really, really important to me. And then start my new job within that amount of time, and also ramp down those side projects. So one thing leads to another. Long story short.
So you mentioned a few things in there that I want to unpack because I think it's worth pointing out specifically.
Yes, let's do it.
You mentioned taking time to yourself. And actually, like, I assume you didn't really say what you were doing, but I assume, decompressing, kind of, collecting your thoughts, making a plan of action. And you actually posted something on LinkedIn not long ago that I found to be a really intriguing concept. You said something about how you've been taking the time to sharpen your axe, before you sharpen your axe before you chop down a tree and let the axe do all the work, or something to that effect, right? And what I want to point out there is that, you have to plan to be able to do that. And so, like we said, everybody out there, this will happen to you. I'm more, there's a 90% chance that you will get laid off at some point in your career. So plan ahead and get yourself a nest egg, save some money and cash in a savings account so that you can take 2 months, a month, a few weeks off. You don't have to stress out because it's already a very stressful situation. Plan in advance so that you can take that month off, because you could have probably easily been in a position where you're like, well, how am I going to pay my rent next month in 2 weeks? I'm not going to get a paycheck.
And I just bought a house also.
Exactly. So the last thing you want is like the mortgage company coming back to repossess it, right? So, plan for that. Like save a few $1,000s, figure out what your monthly bills are, and make sure you've got a month or two in the bank so that if this does happen to you, you can take a minute to yourself and regroup and sharpen your axe before you start trying to go, attack the job market and hunt for jobs. And I think this is already a stressful situation. What can you do now to plan so that it isn't more stressful than it needs to be?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like you said, a plan of action. My dad puts it very bluntly. He says to me, he's like, "Kasey, it's not about planning on if these things happen. It's about planning on when they happen.
Yeah, of course.
Because they will, right? Like with random emergency dental work, my first week of the new job, right? Like you can't foresee these things happen. You can't foresee the market crashing. You can't foresee layoffs like this. Like it's just having some sort of plan to get on top of it, be ahead of it. So there's a couple things. One, being liquid enough for at least 6 months, right? Having enough in savings that you can coast for 6 months. Granted, like if you're like going out to restaurants and partying and drinking all the time and spending money and, buying clothes,
don't do that.
don't do that for 6 months, right?
Eat some tuna fish.
Eat some tuna fish out of a can. Like bring, you can't live that high and fancy tech life, with those salaries for 6 months, but like have enough liquid that you can live comfortably and pay your bills for the next 6 months. All right. So that's number one, be liquid enough. And then two, also make sure that you're updating your resume and your portfolio as a designer.
Be ready.
And I keep seeing these damn posts on LinkedIn. I'm going to rant for a second, but like,
go for it.
about like, we should cancel portfolios or like, no, what makes us special as designers is the ability to show our work. That is what makes us, that's what separates us from the heathens, okay?
those damn barbarians.
Those damn barbarians, right?
And their Times New Roman resumes.
Fucking Comic Sans and shit. No, like this what makes us special and you should lean on it and also keep it updated. I would do it yearly. At minimum, update it yearly. That will get you, again, like if you're let go last minute, you're not scavenging, you're not like hurting to get it to set up.
This reminds me actually of something our mutual good buddy, Jay Castile.
My man. Shout out to my boy.
Anybody out there listening, I have another podcast called Retro Time. We did a whole series on Retro Time about getting hired. And one of the things Jay said, and I still tell people, mentors, mentees all the time to this day, he came up with this idea of a work diary where when things happen at work, you just write them down. It could be a note, could be a box note, could be a Google Keep note, whatever note you use, pen and paper, doesn't matter. Important things happen, write it down. Wins, write them down. And then when you come to do your resume or write a case study about your project, you've got all that information written down. And you don't have to go back and try to remember it all. And this could be something you do daily, weekly, on a Monday morning, Friday afternoon, whatever you want to do. But just write down what happened that week, important things that you think you'd want to show off later, tell people about, things you accomplished, whatever it is, because years later, you're going to forget. And especially when you're talking about writing a case study, unless you're making it up on the fly, like how do you remember all that stuff? Like how do you write a case study a year or two after that happened? You're going to forget, right? A lot of things you're going to have to go back, find files, find this, find that. Keep all that stuff organized as it happens. So when it does come time to update your resume and portfolio, you've got that little, scratch sheet to work from, jog your memory. I always thought that was brilliant advice. So Jay, if you're listening, thank you for that advice. I still use it to this day. My
boy, Jay Castile. Shout out to my boy. Do that a lot lately. I can't agree with him enough. I feel, and I call it a design journal.
There you go. Okay.
Same thing. And I could probably do a better job of note taking and being a little bit more intentional and thoughtful around when and how often I take notes. Again, it's like such a great way on how to just capture the wins, the losses, what's going on. Sometimes, getting feedback and not agreeing with it. Again, like it really helps you when you go to build your case studies and your portfolio to reflect back on what happened with which project and which team member and so on and so forth. You can again talk about it in the future. But just to be prepared, like just keep your shit up to date. Like that's so important.
Now you just said something, actually, I didn't even think of this, but it's also good for those behavioral type questions in interview. Tell me about a time when you had an interesting thing, or tell me about a time when something happened and you had to deal with conflict. Writing those things down as they happen, that'll be, you got a little cheat sheet for the interview. You got a cheat sheet right there. You don't have to come up on the fly, make something up. Oh, let me see you make some
damn BS up, man.
Right? Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. But anyway, so it's interesting though. We're talking about stuff though that like you should be doing now, regardless of if you got laid off. So anybody listening out there, you haven't been laid off yet, do these things so that when that meeting invite comes and you're like, you got that feeling in the pit of your stomach, you're like, I don't know what this meeting's about. I don't like this. You're ready, that next step. So what I want to ask you next, this is an interesting question. What do you do the minute that phone call ends or Zoom meeting ends, or you walk out the door, what do you do? What's the next step?
It's hard to say like what you would do. I think is thinking about it like in the future tense, right? But I can tell you what I did when what happened to me, right? So that 15-minute phone call ended. I was like, I'm a fire sign, so I'm very passionate. So I was like, fuck, I was heated. I was sad. I was like, because again, going back to what we're talking about, you don't want to be caught with your tail between your legs. You don't want to be caught off guard. It's going to catch you off guard, right? Because you're just not going to see it coming. The chances of you seeing it coming is very low. And what I did, I thought about it for a while. Again, I reached out to my friend and I said, and I asked him if there's, any more contract work I could pick up. Yes, great. Him and I had a chat about stuff. I did keep it to myself. I didn't keep it to myself. I didn't post it online.
Right.
I didn't do a public post on LinkedIn about being let go. I'm on the fence about that. A lot of it was happening to our friends. A lot of it happening, in our industry. I just didn't want to add to the noise. I also wanted to pressure test my network and see and kind of like test the waters a bit. And it sounds kind of weird, but like, I wanted to reach out to a few people and to see what came out of that. Does that make sense? Like I wanted to see I wanted to, it was quality over quantity at that point.
It's funny you mentioned that you didn't post on LinkedIn. I'm trying to think back of what happened when I got laid off. And if I remember correctly, like our entire office of 400, 300 something people got laid off all at the same time. And I was just thinking to myself, like, what's the point of posting this? It's like you said, it's going to take away from someone else. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't need the attention. I don't want the attention.
That's a good point,
I can't remember if I actually posted though or not. I probably ended up posting something more in like condolences and talking about how supporting my friends and everyone who got laid off, less than like I need a job kind of thing. But I can't remember exactly what I posted. But I remember having that same thought though. Like, what's the point of posting this? Like, everybody knows it was all in the news. GE laid off a bunch of people, so it's like, But I don't know. I can't remember. It's kind of interesting. You had that same kind of conundrum.
Well, you made a really good point. I feel like taking the opportunity away from someone else that could probably use that platform or utilize that platform in their own situation more so than I needed to.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like me posting about it, like I've, just like you, Jared, been in this for a while, not as long as you, but like
not that much longer.
Now over a decade myself, right? So it's just, we did it for a minute. I built a pretty strong network. I have, communities around the US, not to mention the globe. And I was able to just reach out to people individually and say, hey, look, I got let go. Do you have any opportunities? Do you know anybody? And like the friends that I reached out to really came out of the woodwork. They came out swinging. They were like, hell yeah, man. Like I got like this, and this. And so like, I didn't, there's been a lot of like, let's say junior, mid-level, senior designers that were let go. And I would want to give them that space, that opportunity to like talk about it publicly and have access to more opportunities and not myself getting in the way of that. I didn't want to, roadblock anybody. So I went the back route. I went the back avenue. And I feel like there's no wrong or right way to do this. I just feel like you just kind of go with what you're feeling, what you feel is right. And I just wanted to have more private conversations. So that's what I did. Again, like you get to a certain point where you don't really have to interview all that much, which is kind of nice. Like not to humble brag, but I only had 2 interviews.
Well, that's the thing, though. When you network, right, you don't need as many interviews, generally speaking, because those people already know you and they know what you can do and they know what you can't do and they know what you're capable of and they know if you're a good fit.
That's right.
And so you're not going to get these interview questions where you're like, walk me through some of your work or, tell me about a challenging time when, because they know. They already know you. And a lot of times, it could be people you've worked with in the past.
That's right. Exactly.
So, it's interesting because I tell people this quite a bit, but I've only gotten rejected from 4 or 5 jobs my whole life, like from interviews, not because I'm great, but because I go after or the jobs that I've gotten because I've known people and I've networked and, very rarely have I sent random cold emails or applications off and been rejected, or had interviews and gotten rejected that way because I got a referral and I knew somebody on the inside.
Knew somebody. Yep.
And I think this is something though that this applies here, obviously, because, and this goes for people looking for work now, regardless of if they've been laid off or not, but building that network up. It's not to use in that immediate moment. It's like a fruit tree. You plant an avocado tree and it's not going to grow avocados for years. You're not going to get an avocado the first season that you plant this tree. So, the same thing goes for these network and these relationships. You plant the seed, you build the network, you nurture it, you water it, you keep interacting. Even if you're not getting anything from it, it's still a mutually beneficial thing, obviously. And then maybe at some point, it'll come through. Maybe when you least expect it, maybe when you need it in this case. And so I think that's a really important thing when it comes to networking is you can't wait until you've been laid off to start networking, because at that point, again, you can't get this fruit for for some time. So by this time, hopefully you get laid off. Let's keep the fruit tree farmer thing going here. You can harvest that fruit when it comes time. Once it's there, you see the avocado, you can reach for it and grab it, as opposed to, quickly planting the seed and hoping something grows overnight.
That's such a great analogy, Jer. I feel like, all good things come in time.
Yeah.
Right. And
absolutely.
It takes that nurture, it takes that care, it takes patience, and it takes, and like you said, it's going to be unexpected. It's going to be when you don't expect it, when you need it the most.
Yeah.
That's when you are able to, finally pick that avocado that you want and cut that bitch in half and enjoy your avocado toast.
Exactly. Make a nice toast. Make a nice avocado toast. I like it.
Absolutely.
I had an avocado popsicle once. That was delicious. It was very good. Very, very strange.
Avocado popsicle.
Yeah, it was very creamy. It was great, man. It was a vegan, non-dairy popsicle. Way better than I thought it was going to be. But it was good.
That sounds kind of good. Yeah.
I'd rather eat avocado toast, to be honest. But anyway, it was pretty good.
Yeah.
But anyway, but it's interesting that you mentioned the you can't expect these things, because I think your route, you took your route, you were able to, and not post on LinkedIn is what I mean. You were able to reach out to a few select people, those networks that you've been nurturing over time. And you knew that those avocados may be there to pull, right? As opposed to not being ready. And then I think that's when people start to post on LinkedIn, and not always, obviously some people just do it because they want to, but the people who are frantically posting on LinkedIn the day they get laid off, those are the people who are trying to, plant that seed that day and hoping something sprouts up in the next month or so before their next mortgage is due.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big difference, and it's interesting. Again, like you said, you didn't have to interview, you maybe had a couple phone calls or something and you were there because you had been doing this networking over time and people knew you and trusted you. And I think that's really important to remember for all those young designers out there that are just starting out or haven't started networking yet. This is why you do it. It's not to get a job tomorrow. It's to help you when you need it years from now. I think that's something really important to remember.
100%, man. 100%. Look, I mean, over the last, and to our entry level, junior, mid designers, who are just entering the field or not networking as much as they should be or too afraid to. Over the last 10 to 12 years, I have planted and nurtured a lot of trees.
Yeah. You got a forest.
Okay.
You got a forest.
I got a forest in my backyard. All right. I got a forest. And some of those trees you have to let die. Sometimes to make way for new ones.
That's a really good point. You got to fell some trees.
You got to take them down. You got to clear some space, make space for new trees, right? And new different types of fruits and vegetables and so on. I love this farmer analogy.
Yeah, have you thought about maybe just ditching design altogether and becoming a farmer? Is that something you thought about?
Thought about a lot, Jer.
I would actually love to, dude. I think, what's funny? I was actually going to ask you this next, but how do you know where to go next? I always told my wife, I joke about that. I'm kind of half joking, but I live in Cincinnati now and they don't have New Orleans food. You know this. You've lived all over the place too, being from New Orleans. Snowballs and beignets. And if I could just have a little hole in the wall window where I could sell snowballs in the summer and coffee and beignets in the winter, that's what I want to do if I get laid off again. But I'm curious.
Hey,
this is a personal question. I don't think you could say this is what you should do for everybody. But in your case, how did you decide what to do next?
That's a great question, Jared. And again, like you said, I can only talk about my personal experience, right? And I hope that my words can, help someone else navigate a challenging path they may face one day. But in this market right now, like, well, let me just back up for a second. Like, you and I have both worked on some sexy ass products in the past.
Mhm.
Like, we've had some opportunities to work on some really cool stuff, mobile apps, innovative software, bleeding edge tech, like really cool web apps, blah, 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 like all the cool things. So, and we worked at big companies. We worked at small companies. You and I have had, like, we've done the gauntlet of design, as you could say. And now with being laid off, I was actually now looking for a safety net.
Yeah.
And what comes with safety nets is like not the sexiest work in the world, and that's fine. Yeah. So my wants and needs had shifted from sexy product, changing the world, to safety net, great team.
Yeah.
That is what led me to the decision that I've made to go to Seismic, to choose this company, because I just really enjoyed the conversations that I had with the team members during the interview process. First of all, I mean, it's a big company. They're profitable. Yeah. They've never had layoffs in the past. Over the last 10 years they've been in business. That's a good sign.
Yep.
Especially with right now with the situation of the market and all the things happening. The team was great. Product solid. They need help in like the project that I'm gonna work on is like across like all of their verticals basically, which is really cool. So it gives me good access and to being able to do great work. And then I get to learn from really smart, intelligent team members. I'm really talented folks, and it's a paycheck at the end of the day. Going back to being personally invested in a company than being let go, like it hurts more if I wasn't like so invested in it. So that was worse. So now it's like moving forward, great company, good, even better team, and a paycheck. And that's.
Yeah. I think maybe to back up a little bit, you just said something I think was important to think about before the layoff, news comes. But, you mentioned this, I can't remember exactly how you say it, but it was like, you have to detach yourself from the job and from the role. Like, you are not that role. You are not that job title. You are, Kasey, who happens to be the lead designer or head of design at this company, right? It's not like I'm Kasey, I am the lead, it's like I'm Kasey and I do that work, but it's not me. It doesn't define me. And I think that is really important too, because keep in mind that even if you don't get laid off, they could cancel the project. They could defund that app that you're working on and move you to something else completely. They could take you off that at any point, and they could take you off that role and give you a new role and a new title that might not sound as sexy as whatever you had before. So even if you don't get laid off and they restructure stuff, there's still that kind of sense that like I'm no longer. And I had this myself where on my previous project, I was the lead UX designer on this gigantic multinational application that spanned the US and Europe. And I had design teams all over. We were, pods all over in Europe. And I got to travel to Hungary and Europe and, Asia, do all these really cool things. And that app got defunded. And the next day I just wasn't on anymore. I'm like, now I'm just a UX designer with no team, no this, no that, no status, I don't get to travel anymore. And it was like a humbling experience. That was long before I got laid off, but still it was a different thing. It's like, that was a very humbling experience, I think. And I think that's the kind of mindset. It's like and that's kind of when I started doing a lot of this other stuff like podcasting and, all this other stuff, because it's like, I'm more than just that title. I have opinions, damn it.
Yeah.
I have ideas. I'm going to share them with the world. I don't need to just like do this. So
I'm a human being.
Yeah, that's right, man. So I think that's something important to remember. Yeah. So that's something I want to just kind of highlight, because I think that was something we didn't call out specifically. I think it's worth mentioning. The other thing that I wanted to kind of highlight that you said was, you mentioned you wanted to go to a place that you felt comfortable and safe and had the safety net. And I think this is something that you can do before you get a job. While you're interviewing, ask, when's the last time you had layoffs? You could ask that. There's nothing wrong with asking that. You could ask, what did you do for the teams that got laid off? How did your company handle it? Was there some program? I'll give you an example with GE. They treated us, I think, really, really, really well. I was shocked, to be perfectly honest. When we got the news that we were getting laid off, they actually gave us 3 months paid. So we had three months before our end date.
That's good.
They gave us a year to look for internal roles at the company, to find jobs outside of, something that would be posted publicly. So they did that. And they also gave us opportunities for career coach, help with resume writing. They helped refer us to other companies and stuff like that. So they treated everybody, I think, maybe I'm partial because I'm still there. I ended up getting a job with them again. But I think this is really important. And my wife also got a job there with GE Aviation again. So, she worked for a different business and went from power to aviation. But still, I mean, the reason why she wanted to go back was because of how they treated everybody when they did break the news. And I think it's there. And then I've also heard horror stories where somebody, they get a note, an email, and their computer shut off, and then they have to, mail their computer back, and that's it, and they're done. So I think you can ask these questions in an interview, and think about this. If that interviewer dings you for that, would you want to work there? Would that be a company? To me, I would want them to answer very excited and very passionate about how they treated their people. They're not just butts and seats, they're people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would hope if you can find an interviewer that is excited about talking about this and passionate about how they treated their people and was very proud of how they treated their people, that's a place you want to be.
Absolutely. And it's so funny you say that. Yeah, do your homework. I mean, ask these questions in interviews. And it's funny that you bring this up is because that's what happened with some of my interviews is that I decided to shift my questions around to ask about profitability, if they're in line to go public, to IPO, what that looks like. Just questions that are more like financially based, again, because of the state of the market. I want to get more history on the company. And the fact that they never had layoffs was a really great sign.
Sure, yeah, right. I mean, it tells you something about the leadership, right? Like we didn't grow too fast. We knew to throttle back. We could have hired thousands of people and then overhired and then had to correct. But we didn't,
Exactly.
So these are the kind of things I think this is something I think you learn over time as you get to, and this is not just design, by the way, this is any profession. But the more veteran you become, the more you realize how much power you actually have in these interviews. It's not just I'm there to impress them. It's they're also here to impress me because I don't have to take their job offer if I don't want it. Right. And
right.
I think a lot of people don't realize that they'll take whatever offer they can get. But that should not be the case because if you do, you may end up in this situation where a year from now, you got a job at a company that hired too many people too fast and then they had to let them all go. So I think that's really important. Asking those types of questions, culture questions, leadership questions, financial questions, how they treated their people. When's the last time they had layoffs? When's the last time they fired somebody? That kind of thing too. These are questions that I think are really important for you to ask in an interview, regardless of if you've been laid off or not.
Yeah, one of my to kind of I guess echo on this, Jeremy, is one of my favorite questions to ask is am I filling someone else's position? And if so, why?
Yeah.
Why that person leave? Really get some thinking.
That's a really good one. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. What the last person that was here, what happened? Yeah. Why did they get let go? Did they quit? Why did they quit? Why did they get fired?
Right. Well,
yeah. What did they do? Yeah.
What can you tell me about this situation? And how can you make this better?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. These are really great questions. And again, think about how they answer. If they get pissy about it and you shouldn't ask that question, blah, blah, blah. This tells you a lot about the company.
It's red flag.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It tells you a lot about the company.
There's green flags or yellow flags and red flags to look out for, right? And that, if their reaction will tell you everything. And again, you really want a team, especially a manager, if you're interviewing with a manager, right? You want them to be as open and honest with you as possible. I prefer that. I prefer open honesty, open communication and honesty. That's critical to me.
So I got another question. This is sort of a weird question. I don't really know how you answer this, to be honest, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm curious to see what your opinion is. But a lot of people have been laid off recently, and obviously way more people have been laid off than just Twitter, Spotify, Amazon, these big giant tech companies. A lot of small companies, a lot of startups, a lot of companies you've never heard of. Their people have been let go too. You get laid off. A lot of times market downturns, little companies and big companies at the same time get laid off. How do you end up competing with those people with the big fancy tech companies in their resume? You have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's a tough one, man. Because I don't really have any of the FANG companies. I have some multi-billion-dollar companies on my resume, right? But not the big boys, not ones, Google, Facebook, Apple, not the big sexy ones. But there's a two-part of this. The one part is I don't know if my resume will technically really compete with a direct like relative that worked at Apple or worked at Google, right? I don't know if I will. But the thing is, I've built a very strong network.
Yeah.
And that is what helps me.
That's how you differentiate.
Differentiate myself, helps me keep myself ahead of the curve and competitive. Right. Is my network and who I know and who I work with, and also keeping my shit up to date, my resume up to date, my portfolio up to date, continuously working on myself, and all of my outside of my 9-to-5 stuff, all of my side projects, my activities, all of my meetup stuff, like all of my community building efforts and network building, and like not networking to network for the sake of networking, but like building community. Yeah. That's imperative to your personal and professional growth and development. And the second part about that is the whole situation sucks for big tech right now, but it does open up an opportunity for like mid-tech companies to start working their way up the chain and pick up these really talented folks from big tech companies. You're not gonna be able to make as much money as you were probably, right. But you have an opportunity to really help push these mid-tech companies or small tech or like startups to the next level, right? And develop the next Google, develop the next Apple, innovate, build the next great product. So again, out of this situation comes a lot of opportunity.
You just said something again that kind of made this. I feel like an old man. I feel like a grandpa giving like, oh, you young kids and your whippersnappers. But a friend of mine that works at Google not long ago told me about how much he made. And I was shocked by how obscene the amount was. It was double what I make. It was a lot of money. It was a very, very, very high amount. Now they were out in Mountain View and they obviously had higher, taxes and cost of living and all that. But what I would say is this is something just please, if you end up getting a job where you make an obscene amount of money, please save as much as you possibly can. Do not fall into the lifestyle creep where just because you can afford a Mercedes or an Audi, you go and buy one. Please, like, just for the love of God, this is the dad in me just trying very hard to get you to think more responsibly. Live within your means. Please, please, please don't spend all that money just because you're making a lot. Save it for a rainy day because you at some point will need it. And if you get that lifestyle and you become accustomed to that lifestyle, what are you going to do when you can't find a job making nearly as much money and you're used to the caviar and the champagne and the Audis and the giant house in some fancy neighborhood or whatever? But I don't know. I mean, absolutely, just be responsible is all I'm saying. I feel like an old man giving that advice. I couldn't agree with you more, man. But Jesus Christ, it's just so obscene. Like I feel like in the tech industry, man, we've been spoiled by the salaries. And I just think about how much my parents made growing up, man. I'm like, I can't believe how much people today make and the profits in these giant tech companies and all that stuff. Anyway, whatever. Cautionary tale, I guess. Just be careful. Please don't fall for the lifestyle creep thing.
It's a cautionary tale, man. And stay liquid, bro. And remember, stay liquid for 6 months.
Stay liquid. Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So, this actually reminds me of something too. I don't know how easy this is to do. It's probably very difficult because I'm not even there. But, you think about investors, right? They always say, you don't put your eggs in one basket. You like diversify and all this stuff. And really, if you think about relying on one source of income as like a job, it's literally putting every single egg in the same basket, right? Very fragile basket sometimes. Trying to diversify your revenue streams if you can. I mean, you think about, like I do this podcast. I don't make any money, but maybe at some point in the future, I could get sponsors and make a few $100s a month. And I know you're doing like Airbnb rentals, making a few hundred. I don't know how much you make, but whatever. So that kind of stuff. If you can find ways to diversify, to make more money on the side, it could be freelance. It could be, I've seen people online on LinkedIn, for instance, talking about, monetizing a newsletter. You've got a lot of experience as designers. You could probably start a coaching thing on the side, charging, I don't know, $50 an hour, maybe, depending on your, maybe 100, depending on the level of experience. These are the kind of things that you could think about. If you do get laid off, you could try, maybe like you take 2 months off. That's a good opportunity. You have free time. Try to do some of these things and see where it goes. And if it doesn't go anywhere, well, then you could always fall back to the full-time position. But that idea of diversifying, becoming more liquid, figuring out how you can, think more like an entrepreneur in these scenarios. Yeah. It's kind of frightening for a lot of people.
Create streams of passive income.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's supposed to be frightening.
And if you know how to do that, anybody let me know because I'd love to. I need some passive income.
I think it's like, you don't know if you don't try. Exactly. Right. And I feel like creating streams of passive income, doing side projects, creative outlets, what better opportunity to explore if you've got some extra time on your hands and like why not? Right. Yeah. Like, why not discover a passion and explore it, and see if you can turn it into something that's somewhat profitable and self-sustaining, and then becomes passive income, and then so on and so forth. But like, yeah, of course, like you want to invest, you want to like, try to build businesses with people, rental units, shit like that. So that's my goal now. I'd like it, like in 10 years, like I want to own enough properties to where I'm no longer, I guess working in tech. That's the goal.
Yeah. Like work your way out of a tech job. I love that though. Cause it's such a stressful thing. And it's funny too. Cause like, I don't know, maybe I'm just feeling this cause I'm like 41. I mean, 41 next year. I'm getting fucking old, man. But,
you don't look it, bro. You
thanks,
you look 32.
Yo, come on. What are you talking about? I was gray in my hair. Oh, my gray in my beard.
It's great looking beard,
it's the beard. I'm glad the gray is just in the beard, though. I feel like if the gray were up top, I don't know. I'd look distinguished. Who knows? Anyway, but the older I get, man, it's like one of those things in this tech industry, the younger kids are just, and I say kids, the younger people, the new people coming in, they always seem more talented. They always seem smarter. They always seem driven. And it's just like, at some point, I'm going to get replaced. If not by them, by like AI chatbot or something, So I got to figure out, like, am I going to stay in this job until I'm 66 and I can retire, whatever the retirement age is in the US? Probably not. I don't think I am. I don't think I'm going to make it that far. I mean, I feel like I'm going to be replaced by a younger, more handsome version of myself that's actually AI and not even a real person to begin with. So I don't know. That's just sort of a frightening thing to think about, but I don't know. All the more reason to drive me to want to do all this, the other extra income, diversifying income. Like
that should be motivation.
For sure.
This should be motivation. And you should be helping the next younger, sexier Jer work up into your position. Right? Like that's our job.
I'm giving away these podcast episodes for free every week, I mean,
for free,
least they can do is like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave a 5-star review.
Like and subscribe. I will be.
Thanks, man. All right, Kasey. So before we get out of here, any other closing thoughts? You got anything else? I got a little game I want to play with you in a minute, but I want to give you a chance to give me any final thoughts.
Yeah, I just really quick. I just feel like for anybody listening that was recently let go or experiencing heartaches with their job or anything like that, guys, like keep your chin up, keep your head up, keep working hard. Keep meeting people, nurture those trees. First of all, plant those trees, nurture those trees, and then yes, they will take some time to come to fruition, right? So like, be patient, work hard, make friends, and don't forget just to live your life because work is work, but life is life. And that's way more important.
True that. My man, Kasey. All right. So I got a little thing I want to do with you here. I got 5 little questions I want to ask. Just a little thing that we do just for all those Beyond UX Designer what is it? I don't even know what the podcast is called. Beyond UX Design podcast listeners to get to know my guest a little bit more in depth. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
All right. First question here. What is your favorite non-design book?
Oh, I'm looking right at my bookshelf. Favorite non-design book. It's tough because most of my books are design focused.
It's a tricky question.
I'm probably going to go for The Art of Racing in the Rain.
What is that about?
It's a book. I'm so bad with names. Can't remember the author, but it's also a movie. I would recommend reading a book first, obviously, maybe watching the movie later. But it's basically a book about a dog, and it's told from the dog's perspective about his life. And like, it starts off with him knowing that he's dying, which is like the saddest thing in the world. Okay. But it's about his owner working really hard and going through all these life events, trying to become a Formula One race car driver. And again, it's told from the dog's perspective, which is beautiful.
And that was a movie? What movie? Was it the same title? Or?
The Art of Racing in the Rain. Yeah. Came out maybe within the last 10 years.
That was the name of the movie? Okay.
Art of Racing in the Rain. Yep.
Okay. I've never heard of that.
It's beautiful, man. Beautiful book.
At first, I thought it was maybe like the Fast and Furious adaptation of a book or something. All right. What's your favorite non-design podcast?
Shit, dude. That's a tough one. I feel like if I say Joe Rogan, I'm going to get canceled.
I won't cancel you.
Dude, I don't know, man. Oh, you know what? I really enjoy Morbid.
Morbid. What is that about?
Morbid is like these 2 ladies talk about true crime over the last few centuries, like mysteries and like murders. But Morbid on Spotify.
Right on. All right. I'll have to check it out. All right. What's your favorite meal or most memorable meal?
Man, for me to cook or to order out or something?
Whatever you want.
Okay. Gosh, there's this place called Juliet's. It's an Italian spot here in Austin, and I discovered it last year. They had this, I think it was like a spicy sausage rigatoni dish that I got the large of it. I destroyed it at dinner. I ordered one to go, ate that the next day, and then the next day after that, I ordered it for lunch delivery.
Damn, dude. All right.
So
that's it.
Juliet's,
all right.
chef's
I'll
kiss.
put a link in the show notes. All right. What's your favorite vacation spot?
Ooh, vacation spot, Puerto Rico. Oh my gosh.
Pura Vida, baby.
If
Oh wait, no, that's not that's Costa Rica. Never mind. Puerto Rico, different place. Sorry, I'll cut that out.
Different place. Yeah, you cut that. That's fine. Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico. I mean, the beaches, the people, the food, the mofongo,
mofongo. There's a place
it's
out in
just
Cincinnati that sells mofongo, man. Oh, it's so good.
Really?
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to find.
Oh, there's a place.
It's hard to find,
mofongo,
man.
but that's all they do is mofongo. If anybody out there not listening, I want to say, is it fried plantains that are mashed or steamed or boiled?
Fried.
They're fried. And then they're
it's just plantains, so they're cooked in different ways.
Yeah. And then they mash them, and then they put all kinds of toppings on top of the cooked plantain. Oh, it's so good.
Oh, it's delicious. Puerto Rico.
All right. Last question. What's your favorite design tool that's not Figma?
Oh my God. Not Figma?
Not Figma. No
Shit.
Figma.
I don't really use anything else now at this point. Oh my God, dude. Maybe Procreate on the iPad.
I've never used it.
Gives me a chance to draw with my iPad Pro and my pencil.
Right.
Sketch out some ideas. You can also use it for really high-end digital art and illustrations, which is pretty cool too. But I do a lot of just ideation, if I want to go and I've got my iPad with me. I would say probably Procreate.
All right.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, dude. All right, Kasey. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm really stoked to get your insight on what to do when you get laid off, what to do before you get laid off, and how to handle it and all that stuff. I really appreciate that. So just remember, network, plan ahead, hope for the best, plan for the worst, and don't get yourself in a position where you have to have that job in a week, because it is going to take longer than that, especially if everybody else is getting laid off with you. Keep your portfolio up to date. Write that what'd you call it? I called it a work diary. You called it a design journal.
Design journal.
Yeah.
Oh,
And next interview, make sure you ask questions about how they treat their people when they get laid off and see what they say.
Yes, indeed, Jer.
Well, all right, y'all. That's it for me and Kasey for today. I hope we gave a little bit of insight on what to do before and immediately after and ongoing before you get laid off. Because remember, it's not if, it is when this will happen to you. So don't wait until the end. Be prepared. Be ready. Don't let this catch you by surprise. But let us know, you try any of these things? Did any of them work? Did you try some stuff and it didn't work? We'd love to know what worked for you. Hit me up on LinkedIn or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you like what you heard today, don't forget to like or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would love it if you left me a 5-star review. Write a couple sentences. Apple loves that stuff, and so do I. And if you know somebody who might find some of the stuff that we're talking about useful, why don't you tell a friend? That'd be fantastic. Share it on your work Slack channel. That'd be huge. And if you want to keep the show independent and ad-free, make sure to check out all those Patreon sponsorship packages at beyonduxdesign.com/support. You can support the show for as little as $3 a month, and there's some awesome perks like joining the Beyond UX Design Slack community, and you can connect with other aspiring UX designers just like you. You can get a shout out on the show every week, and there's even a package to meet with me for 30 minutes every month. How about that? Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and check out all the past episodes at beyonduxdesign.com. I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX than design. I'll see you around. Take care, y'all.
This episode is not sponsored by Riverside.
You never know. Maybe one day. We'll see.